We'll do the Maimer in Maimorim Melukit in Chele Gimel. This is the 47th Maimer. And the Maimer, B'sho Sha'ola Moshe Lamorim Amru Malach HaShoros Lifnei HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Was said on the first night of Shavuos in the morning. And later on, this was published in the Kuntras Chag HaShavuos Tinosei for Shavuos Yimehagbola Sion of the year Tavshin Nun Aleph Tinosei. B'siyata d'Shmaya Leil Aleph the Chag HaShavuos Lifnei Boker. Hey Tavshin Chavei, in the early morning, on the first night of Shavuos, Tavshin Chavei. B'shah Shalom Moshe Lamorim, quoting the Gemara, that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the heavens, up above, Amr Malach HaShoros Lifnei HaKodesh Baruch Hu. So the angels that serve Hashem said before Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalayla, Master of the world, Mali Yilud Isha Beinenu, what is a born of a woman doing amongst us? What is Moshe Rabbeinu, a human being, doing amongst the angels? Amar Lahen, so Hashem says to the angels, L'kabel Torah ba, he came to receive the Torah. So Amar Lefanov, so the angel says before Hashem, Chemdo Genuza, a hidden treasure, a desirable thing that was hidden. You seek to give it to a flesh and blood, to a human being. Quoting the pasuk in the Tehillim says, put your glory on the heavens. So Hashem says to Moshe, give them the answer, etc. He was afraid, and then he told him to hold on to the Kisei HaKoved. Omar Lefonov, so Moshe Rabbeinu says before Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalayla, Master of the world. Torah Shata Neisen Li, the Torah that you're giving me, Maksiba, what is written in it? Anuchi Hashem Elikecha Asher H'tzaisicha Meretz Mitzrayim Chulu. I'm God, your God, who's taking you out of Egypt. So Moshe is saying to the angels, Mitzrayim Yeradetam Chulu. Did you descend to Mitzrayim? Pasuk says, you didn't never went to Mitzrayim. Torah lama tehelecha. Why should you have the Torah? Shuv, and again, Maksiba, again it says, Zochar, es yom HaShabbos lekadshe. Remember the Shabbos day to sanctify it. It's a day of rest, no malacha. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to the angels, Klum atam esim malacha. Do you ever do work that you need to rest? Shuv Maksiba, and again, what is another one of the commandments of the sayings? Lo siso, not to carry, not to swear in vain. Maso mata yesh benechem. Do you have give and takes business amongst you so that you'd want to swear? Then why would you need the Torah for lo siso? Shuv Maksiba. And further, what else is written in there? Honor your father and your mother. Do you have a father and mother? Shuv Maksiba. Again, what is written there? Lo tirtzach, don't murder. Lo tinaf, not to have relationships that are prohibited. Lo tignev, not to steal. So he says, Kino yesh beinechem, is there envious amongst you? Why would you usually robbing? Neva comes because of jealousy. You don't have, do you have a evil inclination amongst you? So the Rebbe explains now in the bracket that he gives them two answers. That one answer is a general answer. You didn't go down to Mitzrayim, that's why you don't get the Torah. And then he takes apart the specific commandments. So we can say, that Moshe Rabbeinu's response to the argument of the angels, Shnei Inyonim B'Klos, there's two general ideas. First of all, the Mitzrayim Yeradetem Hitshuva B'Negei L'Klos HaTorah. The fact that did you go down to Egypt is a response to the angels as it relates to the Torah in general. The Kiban Sha'atama Klolus Ayin D'Matan Torah. What is the reason, generally speaking, why did Hashem give the Torah? Who Anochi Hashem Elikecha Asher Hotzicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. He starts off, I am God, your God, that took you out from Egypt. Lochein. So meaning the taking out of Egypt is a general thing. And that's the reason why Hashem is giving the Torah. So therefore, since did you then descend to Mitzrayim? Why should the Torah be given to you? Why should you need the Torah? And then he adds shuv, and further, maksiba. So then he starts off with what's written there. That also the very specific commands of the Torah, lo yilecha, zocher Hashem HaShabbos, there should be no other gods, remember Shabbat Hulu, shayochim li Yisro v'lo malachim. They have a connection to the Yidden and not to the malachim. So the Rebbe says, v'tzorich lohovin. The Bakoshas HaMalochim, B'chlal, what did the Malochim mean when they asked for the Torah? They didn't ask for the physical Torah. They asked for the spiritual Torah. So how is Moshe Rabbeinu telling them that they didn't experience the physical? But that wasn't what they asked for in the first place. And the Rebbe asked another question also, that he tells them that when they shouldn't murder or tinov tignov because they don't have jealousy, no yetzer hara, why does we have to tell them because they don't have a yetzer hara? You should have told them they don't have any connection, just like Shabbos and Kibbutz Abayim, there is no physical. Let's look inside. Tzorich lahavin. So we need to understand the Bakoshas HaMalochim to know ha'itchal hashamayim. When the Malachim asked, give your glory on the heavens, what was that? That they should be given the Torah as is in the spiritual level. So what is Moshe responding to them? Do you do work? It wasn't about physical Torah that they were asking. So they don't need to rest Shabbos from work, but they want the spiritual level. And also we need to understand that which Moshe responded as it relates to the mitzvahs, so what did he answer them? When the Torah says no rab, no niuf, and no gneva, he answers, Kina yesh b'neichem yitzhara yesh b'neichem. Is there jealousy? Is there yitzhara? Which means the kivon shabalochim ein kina b'neihem, since there is no jealousy there. They don't have an evil inclination. That's why it's not necessary to command them and to warn them for these mitzvahs. So the l'chayre adifa havelele meimer. He should have said even more. He should have said, instead of saying that they don't have a yetzer hara and therefore there is no fights and no jealousy, he should have said even more. Shagama mitzvahs atzmo k'moshe begashmi. The mitzvahs itself, the level of mitzvahs as it's the physical sense, murder, niv doesn't apply. Enum she'echem lamalochim. They don't have a connection to the angels. They're not spiritual mitzvahs. They're physical mitzvahs. Not to steal is physical. Not to rob, not to murder is physical. To niv is murder. This is not. It doesn't connect to the angels. Like it says earlier, Shabbos, that they don't work, so they don't have a body. There's no business there. There's no father and mother. So he told them, that it doesn't belong to them, it's not that they don't need it because they don't have the Yetzer Hara, just because it doesn't apply. Why does he say that they don't need it for these three mitzvahs? So the Rebbe explained that really there's two inyonim why the mitzvahs were given in Gashmis. First of all, in order to be mamshich, we needed Gashmis. And second of all, in order to refine the Gashmis. And that's Moshe's response. But in who? The idea is the Behatam al Zeh Sha'Torah Nitna Lamata Ba'oretz Davke. The reason why the Torah was given specifically over here in this world, there's two ideas here. Number one, Lifisha Hamshocha Shel Yidei HaMitzvah. When can a mitzvah draw down? When you fulfill the mitzvahs physically, that's when you can draw down. That's number one. Another thing is when you do and fulfill, observe the mitzvah below, that's when you sort out the animal soul, so the animal soul can be sorted out. And this is what Moshe says, Klum atem oisim melacha yetzer hara yesh benechem. The whole piece, do you do work and do you have a yetzer hara? The hatam sha'atorah lenitno b'shamayim la'malachim. The reason why it wasn't given to the angels in a spiritual level to them is ozo yuchasedim shnei ha'inyonim. Over there, both of these matters that Torah Begashmis has would be missing. Klum atem oisim melacha sh'atem tzrichim shvus. Because you don't do melacha, so that you need to rest. V'lochein ein shayich sheyikaimu mitzvah shvus begashmis. So it doesn't. You can't fulfill the gashmis dikim mitzvah shvus. Bal derech zeh. Same thing is loisisa kibud avaim, because it can't be begashmis, so that's why you can get the Torah. And yetzer hara yesh benechem, the second aspect that he says you don't have a yetzer hara, and that's why it doesn't apply to them to sort out the nefesh habahamis. So these are the two ideas that was presented by Moshe Rabbeinu's answers. They wanted the Torah beruchnis, that's what they wanted to, but Moshe Rabbeinu told them we needed to be begashmis because first of all, the gashmis brings it down, and second of all, there is no need for you to brings down the amshachas, and second of all, there's no need to be sorting out because you don't have a yetzer hara. Base. So now in this second point that the Rebbe brought out, that the mitzvahs are begashmius because it's mevarer the nefesh habahamis. So the Rebbe in Ois Beis says that the connection of the bitter of nefesh habahamis to Matan Torah is through Matan Torah, we have the koyach to be mevarer the nefesh habahamis. That means that Matan Torah empowers the bitter of the nefesh habahamis. But on the other hand, we also say that it's the preparation of bitter hamidos that allows for us to get Torah and mitzvahs, allows for Matan Torah. The Rebbe says this is also the two ideas when we talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim. In Pashtus, through Yitzias Mitzrayim, then it led us up to Matan Torah. But it also means that Matan Torah brings us to the level of Ha'tshmit Meretz Mitzrayim. So that means that this idea that is brought down at the end to the Malachim about the birur of the Nefesh HaBahamis with regards to the last three Lo Sirtzach, Lo Signev, and Lo Sinov, and the response was that they don't have the Yetzer Hara, there's no birur Nefesh HaBahamis, is very similar to the idea of the first thing that Moshe Rabbeinu responded, which was the general theme, Klum leMitzrayim yiradetem, which is the idea of Torah. And there, Mitzrayim is also the reason for Noich Hashem Elikecha, and it's also Noich Hashem Elikecha that takes us out. Let's look inside. The Rebbe is going to say in his base. Yesh Leimar. So the Rebbe says we can say, the Bahashaychus the Birur Nefesh HaBahamis Lematan Torah, that this connection that we say that when the Eibishter gave the Torah, why not the Malachim and the Yidden, was the Birur Nefesh HaBahamis, which Moshe Rabbeinu's respond, the Rebbe says in the parentheses, Yetzer Hara Yesh B'nechem. You don't have a Yetzer Hara, you don't need the Birur Nefesh HaBahamis. The Eibishter gave us the Torah because we do have a Nefesh HaBahamis. So we can say this in two ways, Shnei Inyonim. There's two ideas why the Nefesh HaBahamis Birur is associated with Matan Torah. Either because the Birur leads to Matan Torah, or through Matan Torah, we have the power to be Mevar the Nefesh HaBahamis. So what are the two Inyonim? Number one, Shal Yidei Kiyum HaMitzvahs Shenitnu B'Matan Torah. When we fulfill the mitzvahs that were given in Matan Torah, Nase Birur Nefesh HaBahamis Kenal, that brings about the sorting out of Nefesh HaBahamis. That's one aspect. But the second aspect is that the birur of the Nefesh HaBahamis leads to Matan Torah. Birur Nefesh HaBahamis that sorting out the Nefesh HaBahamis is also the preparation for giving of the Torah. Shalochein, where do we see that? Soifrim Sfiras HaOmer Lifnei Chag HaShavuos. That's why we count the Omer before Shavuos. Ki Sfiras HaOmer Hu Birur Hamidus the Nefesh HaBahamis. Because counting the Omer is sorting out the emotional Nefesh HaBahamis. And when we sort out the middle Nefesh HaBahamis, we merit on Shavuos Matan Torah. So that's the idea that you're mevarer the midas to get the Torah. And when we get the Torah, the mitzvahs, we can be mevarer. But the Rebbe says these two ideas, that it goes both ways, is also Yetzias Mitzrayim, also goes both ways. Now, Yetzias Mitzrayim, as the Rebbe learned, was the general answer to the Malachim. So the general answer with what he begins and with what he ends have a similar idea, that they both lead and then they're led. What do we see? When it says the Yetzer Hara, do you have a Yetzer Hara? Which is Inyan Ha'achre Shebetshuvas Moshe, which is the last idea in Moshe's response. This is similar to the idea. Have you gone down to Mitzrayim, which is Inyan Harishan Shebetshuvas Moshe? That is the first aspect of Moshe's Shuvah. Shebehashayich is the Yetzias Mitzrayim L'matan Torah Shnei Inyonim. The connection of going out of Egypt to Matan Torah, also we have the same two ideas. First of all, Shal Yidei Matan Torah, we say, Anכי Hashem Elkiך asher tzisicha Meretz Mitzrayim, that it's through Matan Torah, Hamshachos V'gilu, Anכי Hashem Elkiך. We are drawing down, revealing Hashem Elkiך. Through what? Through Matan Torah, asher nasa asher tzisicha Meretz Mitzrayim. And that's the way we take you out of Egypt. So the Matan Torah brings to ha'tshmat Meretz Mitzrayim. That's similar to what we say that through the Kiyum mitzvahs we're mevared the nefesh habamis. But we also say v'sheyitzias Mitzrayim hi'akdoma v'achona l'matan Torah. But the exodus of Egypt is also the preparation, the introduction before Matan Torah, which is the Pashat Pshat, Ki Pirush HaPashut, V'anoich Hashem Elikecha she'tzicha Meretz Mitzrayim. If I took you out of Mitzrayim, Da'asher Tzicha Meretz Mitzrayim, because I have taken you of Mitzrayim, Utam. That's the reason. V'anoich Hashem Elikecha. Why I am Hashem Elikecha? So that's like the Sfiras HaOmer, which comes before the Birur, before Matan Torah, in order to reach Matan Torah. So same thing is Yetzias Mitzrayim. And in the response of Moshe, the very first part of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which has these both parts to it, and the last part, which is the Birur Nefesh HaBahamis, Klum Yetzorah Yesh Beinechem, are similar in that way. However, the Rebbe says, we need to understand the Matan Torah. What is Matan Torah? The Matan Torah. As we say in the opening of Matan Torah, what is Matan Torah? It brings down the highest level, Anokhi. That Anokhi should come down Elekecha. So how do we bring about, through the Birur Hamidos, to bring down this level? What is Matan Torah? That's the opening. So you see, that's the concept. What is Matan Torah? It says, Anochi Hashem Elikecha. I am Hashem Elikecha. I, which is Anochi, becomes Hashem Elikecha. So Anochi Muhuse V'atzmusei, Anochi, which is his essence and who he is, becomes Nasa Hashem Elikecha. So how does it apply? That through the service of sorting out the Nefesh HaBahamis, we should be able to bring down the level of Anochi. That seems to be much higher than where the level of the Birur can reach. And we're saying that through the Birur, we come, through Sfiras HaOmer, we come to Matan Torah. Ois Gimel. V'hinei, Isa b'medrash al haposik. In the medrash, on the verse, Usvartem lochem mimochras haShabbos goymer. Start counting from the day after Shabbos, after Pesach. Sheva Shabbos is Tzimimos Tihiyano, that they should be 7 full weeks. So the medrash says, Eimos Sayhein Tzimimos. When are these weeks complete? Bizman sheYisrael oisim retzoyne shel moker. When the Yidden do what Hashem wants, then they're timimus. But this, the touch of the words Yisrael oisim retzoyne shel moker, they make up a rotzin of moker, is explained that is actually connected to the Avodah B'chol Me'idecha. That's the reason why the Parsha Shema has B'chol Me'idecha, and in the Parshas V'hoya Shemoya it says B'chol Levavchem B'chol Nafshem. There's no B'chol Me'idechem, is because, as the Gemara say, there's no B'chol Me'idecha in V'hoyim Shemoya. So that's called Ein Oisim Retzoyne Shel Mokim. That's why the pasuk says V'asavta Degonecha. You have to do the work. And the Gemara asks, it says other people do the work for you. The Gemara says you do the work when Ein Oisim Retzoyne Shel Mokim. It says V'ahavta. So we translate that it means that they don't have the level of B'chol Me'idecha. So Oisim Retzoyne Shel Mokim means Hudavke Al Yidei Ha'avad B'chol Me'idecha. That's why in the Parshas V'hoyo, it's considered Ein Oisim Retzoyne Shel Mokim. There's no B'chol Me'idecha. But in the first Parsha V'ahavta, in Shema Yisrael, over there, you are having B'chol Me'idecha. But the bottom line is that Oisim Ritzono Shel Mokoim comes Dafke Al Yidei Ha'ava the B'chol Moedecha, if you have this great love of B'chol Moedecha. So when the Medrash says that they're timimus, when the Yidden do Ritzono Shel Mokoim, meaning, in other words, that the Yidden have the love of B'chol Moedecha, because that is when Ritzono Shel Mokoim, which is L'maylo mimedido v'hagabola, beyond any measure and limitations. Moving, it's understood that the mashakosu b'medrash emosa heitmimis. So from the fact that Ritzono Shel Mokoim means av b'chol moedecha, so since the medrash says emosa heitmimis bisman sheYisrael oisim Ritzono Shel Mokoim, that they're considered complete when the Yidden do Ritzono Shel Mokoim. So what does it mean? Therefore, Ritzono Shel Mokoim hu kishaha avoida the Sfiras HaOmer kishura im ha'avod b'chol moedecha. That is when Sfiras HaOmer is tied to that love of b'chol moedecha, and then the Sfira is complete. And the Rebbe points out that sometimes actually it says that the Sheva Tmimis in elsewhere, in another place, it says that the Tmimis are when you have a complete 7 weeks, starting from Sunday through Shabbos. So it turns out, over here we're saying that when is it complete? When it has the Ava B'chol Moedecha, according to this Medrash. But in the other Medrash, it says that when do you have it complete? When it begins on Sunday and it ends on Shabbos, the Sfiras HaOmer. You start Mimocharas HaShabbos, it's actually Shabbos Bereishis, the regular Shabbos, not just after Pesach. So then you have Tmimis. But we need the Ava B'chol Moedecha. So the Rebbe explains that you have to say that when the Shabbos also begins, when there's a full week, that Mocharas HaShabbos starts with Sunday through Shabbos, then it's easier to come to the Ava B'chol Moedecha. Ulahoyer, the Rebbe says to point out, the B'moka Macharon B'Razal, elsewhere our sages of blessed memory say, the Sheva Shabbosos Tmimis who, that what does it mean, the 7 Shabbosos Tmimis, who the Sheva Shabbosos, the Sfiras HaOmer, Maschilo is be'echod b'Shabbos, u'misayimo is b'Shabbos she'b'Shabbos. So over there it says that they start on Sunday, echod b'Shabbos, and they conclude on Shabbos of the week of Shabbos, which is the 7th day of the week. Sha'oz heim sheva Shabbosos tmimis, then you have 7 complete weeks. V'yesh loymar ha'kesher d'shnei pirushim. We can tie and say the connection between these 2 pirushim. Whether Tmimis means that you start from Sunday through Shabbos, or it involves the level of Oisim Ritzono Shel Mokoim, that the Oisim Hashonim, that in those years Sheva Shabbosos the Sfiras HaOmer Maschilas Be'echad b'Shabbos u'Mesaymes b'Shabbos, that those years in which the 7 weeks of the Sfiras HaOmer begins with Sunday and conclude with Shabbos, B'neikel Yoiser, then it's easier that the service of Sfiras HaOmer should be b'chol moedecha. This level of Ritzono Shel Mokoim, the way that to do the Mailam Didav Hagbola in the way of b'chol moedecha, it's easier when you have the Tmimis. So that's the connection between these 2 Pirushim, their Tmimis, that when it is on Shabbos, Sunday through Shabbos, that's the beginning of the week, that's the way the week set up, it's easier to come to the Ritzono Shel Mokoim. So l'chayre yesh loymar, so what's the connection? The Sfiras HaOmer we're saying is Ritzono Shel Mokoim, that's Tmimis. So what's the connection? Sha'ashaychus, the Oisim Ritzono Shel Mokoim b'chol moedecha l'Sfiras HaOmer. What's the connection of this higher level of b'chol moedecha to Sfiras HaOmer? Sfiras HaOmer hi achona l'matan Torah. Counting of the Omer is the preparation matan Torah. V'kivan shehachona l'matan Torah tzricha liyos b'shnei inyonim. Since the preparation matan Torah needs to be in the 2 aspects. First of all, going away from Mitzrayim and sorting out the midas. Sfiras HaOmer echomad. V'kivan shehachona l'matan Torah tzricha liyos B'shnei inyonim. It needs to be in two aspects: Yitzias Mitzrayim, leaving Mitzrayim, Ubiru Nefesh Abahamis, and sorting out the animal soul. Lochein tzorich liyeh b'sfiras ha'omer. So that's why when we count the omer needs to be noisef leha inyan de birur hamidas the nefesh habahamis. In addition to the general sorting out of the midas nefesh habahamis, that's the preparation of sfiras ha'omer. We also need hagam avodah b'chol meidecha. Also the avodah b'chol meidecha, not just to be mevarer, but l'mayl medida v'agbola. Beyond measure and limitation, because Hayitziyah Mitzrayim, that's that first aspect, going out of Mitzrayim, Meloshin Meitzer V'Hagbola, going out from any boundaries and any limitation, and to go out Yitziyah Mitzrayim. So that Yitziyah Mitzrayim necessitates or brings about the avodah of B'chol Me'idecha, the avodah of Oisin Ritzono Shel Mokem. So b'tzorich lahavin. So we need to understand this. According to this, the connection of Sfiras HaOmer, the level of Oisin Ritzono Shel Mokem, the Ma'ila Medida V'Hagbol, is in order to elicit from a Matan Torah the higher level of Ma'ila Medida V'Hagbol. So lifizeh ha'avodah the b'chol me'idecha hi achona muchrachas l'Matan Torah. So that's a necessary. It has to. That's something we need to prepare that way to Matan Torah, because Matan Torah to go out from the Hagbolas. So we need to prepare in a way of l'mayla medidus v'Hagbola. But since we're saying that that's only accomplished when we do Oisim Ritzono Shel Mokem, it says they must say tmimis. In other words, sometimes you can count and not have tmimis, not have the level of Ritzono Shel Mokem. But over here we're saying that always needs to be that level b'chol meidecha, because that's the way to get the hamshach on Matan Torah. The kivon shematan Torah v'avodah b'chol v'shayich u'mezeh she'obtzot l'vizeh ha'avodah the b'chol meidecha yachrona muchrachas l'Matan Torah. Now, according to this, we need the b'chol meidecha. It's a necessity. It has to happen as a preparation for Matan Torah. But from the fact that the sages say, when are they whole, is mashba that mainly sfiras ha'omer, they're not shleimus, not tmimus, but you just have sfiras ha'omer hachon Matan Torah, just to prepare for Matan Torah. Who bidur hamidas the nefesh habahamis, that's just to sort out the midas of the animal soul. V'avodah the b'chol me'idecha. When do you have tamimes? The avodah b'chol me'idecha shayeches, that only applies rak l'shleimus hachon l'Matan Torah, only to the wholesomeness, to the preparation Matan Torah. But here it's always to get the level of l'mayla memedida v'agbola yitzias Mitzrayim beyond the gilui from Matan Torah. Especially the Rebbe says, we talk about Matan Torah, we talk about the level of Ankhi, we need a very high level. And more, it's not understood. Since the idea of Matan Torah is revealing Ankhi, the essence and the atzmus, and what is Hashem, which is higher and higher than the definition of the hishtalshelus. So what would be seemingly the fitting avodah for this revelation? That's the service of b'chol meidecha l'mayla mihishtalshelus be'odam, beyond the hishtalshelus of the person. Afal pikein, and yet Iker ha'avodah d'sfiras ha'omer who birur hamidas the nefesh habahamis. We're saying emos hayin tmimis. The main avodah, though, all the time sfiras ha'omer is sorting out the midas nefesh habahamis. But how are we going to be mamshich Anchey if we need to get to the place which is higher than Hishtalshlus? But in order to be Ramidus Levaris Hamidus the Nefesh Bahamis, in order to sort out Mis Nefesh Bahamis Udavke, that is only Alidation Nefesh Olikis, Mislabeshes Benefesh Bahamis. That is, you need a godly soul dressing up in Nefesh Bahamis. And we're saying that Anכי is not going to come through that shlemus, through the level of B'chol Moedecha. Bitter Midas is enough to bring the Matan Torah. How is it? Dala. Understand this by introducing the pasuk that it says, Kamayim haponim leponim. Kain lev ha'odam la'odam. That just like the face, one shows the water, so is the heart of a person to the other person. Chassidus explained, the leiv ha'odam le'odam, we say the heart of a man is not necessarily to another person, on two human beings. We're also talking about a yid with the Eibishter. We're talking about the Odom HaTacht, the Odom Elyon. The Leiv HaOdom Behavose Lechaveirei, that just like the heart of man, when he loves through his love to his friend, Ma'oirer, he arouses Avas Chaveirei, a love, the love of his friend to him. That's not the only thing. Elagam al Odom HaTachten Va'odom HaElyon. It also refers to the human below and the human supreme being. According to the way the Odom HaTachten works, Saruso de Letato, through the way the arousal of below, that's the way it comes from above. Leiv ha'odom la'odom. The Leiv ha'odom ha'elyon la'odom HaTachten. Hamshocha ma'odom ha'elyon, the extension from the supreme man to the Odom HaTachten. Kemayim haponim leponim. Like the face you show to the water, that's the face you get back. B'yeshleimar. So the Rebbe says the similarity is the way you have to look in the water in order to get the image back. V'yeshloimar shehadimyon, the leiv ha'odom la'odom, the comparison that the heart of man to the other person is compared l'mayim haponim leponim. Who? What is that comparison? The kemoy shebemayim haponim leponim. Just like by water, the face gets back to the face. The fact that to the person he appears to him that shape that he shows to the water, who because when you look into the water, nasim, you make up nidim b'hamayim. You make up the shape of the face that looks in them. When you look in the water, you make up the shape of the face that is in the water that you're looking in the water. And that shape appears to the person that is gazing. So you are the one that's putting your shape into the mayim, and that's what you see back. Kain who believe ha'odam la'odam. The same thing is true with the heart of man to man. That this, through the work and the arousal of below of the human below, nasi sarusa de le'elo, it makes an arousal above. And it brings down from this supreme Odom, supreme man, to the Adam HaTachton who, ki ha'avoida the Adam HaTachton oila mimata l'maylo. Because we are placing our image, our avoida of the Adam HaTachton, it goes up from below to above, l'Adam ha'elyon. And that's through that, through his planting his avoida in the Adam ha'elyon, he gets back similar to this idea. So then this idea that was planted, that came in the Adam ha'elyon through the person placing it there through his Arusa Deletata, Milmaila Lamata Adam Hatachtan to the person below. But over here, the difference is there is a difference because by the water, you have to actually look at it, but by the avoid it happens even if you don't look at it. It says, Ulahisif, to add, the B'moshel Hamayim, when we give the example of the water, the fact that the face of the person that looks, gazes on the water, appear in the water, that is only appearing that one to the one that sees. But it doesn't really happen. Another person doesn't see that. It's just to the person that's looking at the water, you get the reflection. So the one that sees gets that, but there's no image really in the water. Another person is not going to see that image. It's just his reflection. But by Nimshal, it's different. Over there, it stays. By Nimshal, they avoida the Adam HaTachton through the avoida of the person below. Nasis Dugmas Inyan Zeba Adam ha'elyon. This actually becomes similar by the Adam ha'elyon. It's a substance, not just a reflection. It accomplishes there. Not only that it appears that way. So when we're talking about K'mayim Aponim Lev Hodam in the physical sense, in the Mayim over there, it only appears that way. There's no face in the water. It's just a reflection. But by the Eibishter, it actually goes up above, and from the Eibishter Nimshach to the Adam HaTachton, similar to what has gone up from the Adam HaTachton, is Nimshach Misarusa de Le'ela from above to below. Not just appears. So here we explain that Leva Adam, Ela Adam is talking about not only one person to another human being, but from the person to Leva Adam, Adam ha'elyon. But the same is also true, the Rebbe is going to say, with the Kemayim Haponim Leponim, is also translated on the spiritual level. V'hine, just like when we say the heart of man to the man, it's not just literally, but also spiritually, in the impact from the Adam HaTachton to the from Adam ha'elyon to Adam HaTachton in their relationship, likewise, it's also translated as it relates to the beginning of the pasuk, Kamayim Haponim Leponim, the face, the water that you put the face in. He isn't just talking about literally the water, Elagam b'mayim ha'elyonim. He's also talking about the spiritual, the upper level of mayim. Hainu, that is hapshitus the Ein Sof shalamayla mitziur adam, because the water itself before the person mayim haponim, the water is plain. There's no tzir over there. There's no shape. So that's the pshitas, that's the simple, non-shaped, infinite Ein Sof shelamayla mitziyur adam, which is higher than the shape of man, and there's no shape in the water. Ve'inyan kimayim haponim. Leponim, what is the idea that we bring the face in the water? Although the infinite is simple with total simplicity, and it does not apply there, we can't apply there, not connect there. The shape of spheres, it's beyond spheres, it's pshitus, it's mayim, mikol mokoim. But yet, through the elevation of the feminine water, the mayim nukvim, the milmato lemailo of the spheres to the ein sof, which is possible, masin by spheres. Spheres are made up in that level of ein sof, which is the essence spheres aganuzis, called the hidden 10 spheres. These hidden 10 spheres, they're sort of a source from which the revealed 10 spheres come from. Similar to the two aspects when we say the face that you show the water you get back in little water. That the image of the face that is gazing on the water appears in the water, which is ha'alo milmata l'maylo, you see from below to above. V'shahadmus hanidis b'hamayim, and then that image that appears in the water, hinidis achakach la'odom hamistakel, and then it appears to the person that looks, which is hamshocha milmaylo lemato, which is bringing it down from above to below. It's like the Spheres Haganuzes are created through the Allah's man of the Spheres, and then your mamshich from the Spheres Haganuzes, they're the mocker for the Spheres Hagluyas. So now that we touched these two madregas, that the leva odom la odom is odom atachnon elyin, gemayim aponim leponim is the Ein Sof, the Pshitas of Ein Sof, and when they get the Tzir through Halos Man, they get the Tzir, and then it's Mamshich from the Eseshuris Agnuzas Lamata. So there is two, and they're both learned on the spiritual level. So it seems like we're saying, just like Mayim Aponim Leponim came Leva Odom. In other words, Mayim Aponim Leponim is the obvious one. So why is that? We need to understand that just like the face of the water, the face you show the water comes back to the face, looks at that, so is the heart of the person to the Odom. So it's mashma, the inya mayim aponim leponim, that the idea of the mayim aponim leponim, who poshut yoy said it's more obvious than the other idea of the heart of man to man. The uncomparability of the shape upon him relative to the pshitas mayim, to the pshitas Ein Sof, harbe yoser mehaein ha'aroich, it's much greater distance, or much greater not being compared shel hatzir d'odom hatachten legabe hatzir d'odom ha'elyon, the shape of the human below relative to the shape of the supreme being, supreme man. It's greater. K'maimer ha'yedua, as it's known, yoser mishe'ein ha'aroich asi legabe hatzilus, even more than there is not comparable Asiya relative to Atzilus, it's even more not comparable to the Ein Sof. So according to this, so the distance of Odom HaElyon is from Odom HaTachten is less than the distance of the Ponim to the Mayim. there's a much greater distance between the pshitus of the Ein Sof from the Adam than the distance between the tzir of Adam HaElyon and Adam HaTachton. So, so that what we're saying, the fact that through the elevation by Nukra, you make there's a shape of the spheres in the Ein Sof. That seems to be a much more greater novelty idea over here, much more the Odom HaTachton Nase B'Odom HaElyon, from the fact that the shape of the Odom HaTachton through his Sarusa Delatata goes up above in the Odom HaElyon. But umizeh shenemar kemayim aponim leponim, just like the face of the water. In the water, leponim kein levod lodam mash madinya mash mayim aponim leponim uposhit yoser. Over there, it appears from the language of the pasuk that it's more obvious the mayim changes, gets the reflection of the face more than the Odom HaElyon gets impacted by the Odom HaTachton, but it would seem that that's not the case. So why does it say Kimayim Haponim Leponim Kein Leva Odom LaOdom? I say the Rebbe attempts to try to answer the question why we say Kimayim Haponim Leponim, which is more obvious, same as Leiv HaOdom. It almost seems the other way around, because Mayim Haponim is we're talking about the Ein Sof, which is higher than any tziyur. So over there, that there is an impact by the Ponim is l'chayra greater than Leiv HaOdom El which is already mitzir. So the Rebbe says that perhaps maybe we can say because Mayim, and the reason why it's easier is because it doesn't have any shape. There's no color there. This is going to be a very fine idea that the Rebbe is going to present. But in the end, the Rebbe argues that making an impact in the Ein Sof upon him Kimayim is much more difficult, so to speak, than Leiv HaOdom to impact the Leiv HaOdom HaElyon, because already it's a tzir, because Ein Sof is beyond any tzir, as the Rebbe will explain. Hey, we could explain this by introducing that tam al zeh shemistaklin b'mayim niris bohem the mus haponim hamistaklin bohem. What is the reason? You're going to say, why when we look on water we see the image of the face that looks in them? Because water is a material which is clear, and it's see-through. Meaning it's simple, doesn't have any colors. It's very simple. No distractions, no colors, no shapes. It's just plain. So therefore, you can see easier in water. And that's because it doesn't have any shape. But when you look at something that has a shape, then hatzir, which is hagavan shel hadover, the tzir, that's the color of the item, who's soiser lahatzir shel haponim shemistakel boy. It contradicts the shape of the face that looks in it. There is something within the color which doesn't allow for it to reflect the face of the person. It conflicts with it, so that's why you don't see through. So if we take this idea, take the idea of mayim that it has no tzir. So belochein ha'inyan the mayim leponim, and therefore this idea of the water haponim leponim, that there's an impression from the ponim in the mayim shal yidei halo asman naset tzir be'oirin sof, that it makes a tzir in the Ein Sof, who poshut yoser ma'in the lev ha'odom la'odom. That will be therefore more obvious than the idea of lev ha'odom la'odom, because over here the fact that it's less tzir makes it actually easier, because of its shitus, makes it easier to get a shape, to get the tzir, as opposed to leiv ha'odom, which is odom ha'elyon, but it's mitzuyer. So maybe that's why it's harder to reach the tzir. That's why the pasuk says kimayim haponim leponim came leiv ha'odom la'odom. But the Rebbe says no, that's not a good enough explanation. This needs an additional biur. The Rebbe argues that the tziyur of ponim, which is a gashmiyus, or the lower level, into the Ein Sof, can't look at it that this is like mayim, it has no tzir. It's in a total, it's at a different element. It's not in the same category at all. Let's see what the Rebbe says. Look at the words of the Rebbe. This explanation requires an additional explanation. The lechayre would seem the fact that in something which is simple, that is not tainted, doesn't have any colors, why could you see all the tziyurim? When do we say you can see the tziyurim? When the colors and the simple are in the same category. In the same category, you can say that something which doesn't have tziyur can take the pshitus, can take the tziyur better than something which is not pshitus, but it still has to be in the same category. But the Ein Sof of here is a different category. Rugiz elaborates. Hainu, the same category means sheshneim gashmi. If they both be physical, k'moi hamayim v'aponim shemistaklim b'hem. You talk about the physical water and the face that he looks in, so the face is physical and the water is physical. The water, which is clear, has no colors, pshitas can easily accept the face of the person. Sometimes you have the same idea when they're both in the same category. The pshitas and the tzir are both spiritual. Al derech svara pshuta, by way of example, if you have a simple idea, shemitzad pshituso, because of its simplicity, it can be shaped hein b'tzir the chesed v'hein b'tzir the gvura, in both in a shape of kindness, shape of gvura, such as being brought down a lot of times in Chassidus, the idea of that the Eibishter says le'oisif lekalel kol yetzer. Rebbe brings down the order here, kol yetzer machshas libei rak ra, which could be a reason for destroying, bringing a mabel, not bringing a mabel. So you have an idea, and they're both, so the ruchnis, then you can have it combined. Sheshneim hasvora v'atziyurim the chesed gvurim ruchnim. In that case, both of them, the idea and the shapes of chesed gvura, are more spiritual. So you say that shittas can be shaped in both ways, but it has to be in the same category. Physical can be shaped. Simplicity, physical level can be shaped physically, in either way, and spiritual goodness, spiritual. However, but you cannot, but it does not really apply that in something which is simple, that you should see shapes, the formation from another category. Say, for example, if you have an intellectual idea, you cannot, doesn't apply that it should be shaped either in white or red physical. It's not in the category. It's not in the same realm. Same thing, the other direction, B'mayim gashmim, in physical water, you need him tziyurim, the chesed gvura. You should see shape of chesed gvura. So it's not just saying because mayim is pshitas, but that's why you can take both shapes. But that's if it's physical. But in the Ein Sof, in pshitas of Ein Sof, it doesn't. You can't shape it with gashmis. Since the Ein Sof who moves it, lo yirak mahatzir the spheres. It's not just undressed, not connected to the shape of spheres. Elagam mehametzias the spheres, also the whole. It's just like Gashmi is not in the same category as Ruchnis. The metzias of spheres is also not in the category of the Ein Sof. It's a different dimension. It's another category. It's another dimension. The Kamoi she'inyan ruchni who muvshat mehametzias the Gashmi, just as a spiritual matter is undressed from any physical existence. The same thing is with the Ein Sof, that he is undressed, he's not connected from the entity of Sfiras. The Metzias of Sfiras is that they are caught up in some definition, Chochma, Bina. So Ein Sof is not in that dimension. He's totally in a different of Metzias, because that has Geder Chochma Bina Chulu. Since the infinite Ein Sof is total, in total simplicity, so you can't grab hold in him. So therefore he's undressed from the existence of Sfira. It's in a different domain, and it's not shaykhs. So the fact that you make kamayim haponim is a tremendous chiddush. How could it fly like through the elevation of mayim nukvim? So now it's going to shape spheres in the pshitus of the Ein Sof, which is entirely above the spheres. And the answer is, Taka, it's not logical. It's not logical. But the Eibishter wants it to be that way, that our avodah halas man should impact Ein Sof, the Pshit Ein Sof. Abirba's explanation of this Alpiya Yedua, based on what it's known, the Zeshi Isarusa de Letatum, Iredes Umamshechas Isarusa de Leila. The fact that the arousal of below arouses and draws down the arousal from above. Even if we don't talk about pshitas, the Ein Sof pshitas, but we talk about Atzilus, which is the Odom Ha'elyon, Shebechinas Odom Ha'elyon, Atzilus, which is in the love level of the Supreme Man, which is the level of Atzilus. So even there, it's not based on reason and logic. The since the created being is infinite, incomparable to the creator, so according to logic, there is no room that the service of the created being should arouse and impact a change in the matters of above. We cannot in any way, there's no comparison from us to the creator. So our work cannot essentially on its own make a difference to the creator in the matters of above. But this is what it went up in the earliest thought of the Odom Kadmoin, the earlier man, meaning Shalifne Hatzilus, he's Kadmoin before Hatzilus, that through the work of the service of the created being, so there will be an arousal and to extend the matters of Atzilus. Move on, and from this we'll understand for sure ba'inyan the mayim aponim leponim, that it's not logical that in the idea that the mayim aponim impacts the ponim, which is beyond the atzilus, which is in pshitus of the Ein Sof, for sure it doesn't make sense on its own. The zeh shal yidei halos man de b'chinas ponim, that when there is the halos man of the level of ponim, which is eser the atzilus, nase isarusa de le'elo, that it becomes an arousal of above, b'chinas mayim halyonim, in the supreme waters, in the pshitus of the Ein Sof, b'pshitus the Ein Sof, shalom ma'ilum b'chinas Odom, which is higher than Odom. It's not logical. But if you shekain, this is what Hashem's will went up. In the essence of the Ein Sof, which is even higher than the level of Mayim. So just like for the impact of Odom, the Nivra on the Odom Elyon, it comes from Odom Kadmon over here, that the impact of the Mayim should have an impact on the Ein Sof, comes even higher. It comes from the Ratzon of Atzmus Ein Sof, which is higher than the level of Mayim, that the Avodas Haponim, the Spheres, should impact in the level of the Pshitus of the Ein Sof. V'yesh loymar, so we can explain and say that since it went up in his blessed will, the Eibshter decided when there's going to be a hamlos man the b'chinas ponim from the Atzilus, Esesfiris Atzilus, Tia hamshocha b'chinas mayim halyonim. So then there will be a hamshocha from the supreme waters, from the level of mayim. That created a connection to the level of ponim that bring them down. Bedugmas mayim kipshuto, similar to water, literally. Over there, they're connected because they're both gashmis. Over there, the water and the person that look are from the same category, both gashmis. But this also brought about the level of the mayim elyonim, which is pshitus Ein Sof, to have a connection to the spheres that are mamshech them. V'lochein ha'sarusa de le'elo b'bchinas hamayim. So the sarusa de le'elo that comes in the level of water, shal yidei halos man the spheresu, that comes through the elevation of the mind of the spheres, loy rak his oirus shetia Hamshachas Ein Sof b'Sfiras. So it's not just that through the lost man of the Sfiras that it should bring down Ein Sof in Sfiras, so we should get the Ein Sof in the Sfiras. Elahagam, it accomplished that that a connection was made so that also in the Pshita himself has the idea of Sfiras, which is the essence of Sfiras Agnosis. But dogmas mayim kipshutam, similar to the literal water. Shenidas bahem atzma ponim mistakelas bahem. In them you see the face that looks in them. So the sarusa de letata from the mayim tachtonim impacts and leaves the imprint in the mayim helion, that they too get the level of ponim. Mayim aponim leponim.